Hi everyone, welcome to the CoLab, SpacetoCo's free monthly online sessions that are designed to assist those working in community venues to learn, upskill, and be inspired to do their work more efficiently and effectively. We hope you find these sessions useful for the important work you do in our local communities. We welcome you who are joining us right now at this live event, and also those who are watching this recording after the fact. I'm Shauna Graham, and I'm part of the marketing team at SpacetoCo. And my colleague Carmela Macalio organizes these monthly webinars, but she's off on maternity leave. So you've got me these next few months. I'm happy to be here. Just a little bit about SpacetoCo before we move on. So, SpacetoCo is a two-sided marketplace where you can list your spaces and people can find and book them online. It is also an enterprise-level online booking system that helps you manage bookings and payments, keep in touch with hirers, gain insights from data, and so much more. We work with a number of local governments as well as community centres across Australia and New Zealand. We also create and provide free resources for those working in community venues, like this webinar series. I'm really excited about this series, or the session this month, because we're going to talk about how community venues can be more sustainable and share resources with the community. From zero waste, food rescuing, to recycling and repairing, where does a community venue start in becoming more sustainable and encourage their community to do the same? We heard 2 months ago on our climate change session about how caring for our community is more important than ever, or our environment. So I'm excited to hear about more ways we can be good stewards of the earth and use our community connections for good. So we have Jo Wrigley, who leads the team at the Waikato Environment Centre. Trading as Go Eco, the centre is a social enterprise working across the intersections of environmental and social projects, including food rescue, bike hub, the Central Waikato Predator Free Hub, the Library of Useful Things, and climate response programs. They will discuss Go Eco's work and experiences pursuing organizational and community-led sustainability practices. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Jo. Hello, Jo. How's it going?
Good. Kia ora koutou, ko Jo Wrigley aho. It's a pleasure to be here, and I will endeavour to answer your questions as best I am able today. A shout out to the Perth whānau. I was once a resident of that fine city, and it's nice to see those spaces from Perth pop up here. And also, hi Nicole, who is here with me in Kirikiridoa, Hamilton City Council. So a little bit more about me before I get into the discussion today. Ko waio, who am I? My name is Jo Wrigley. I have a background, and when I was in Perth, out of interest for everybody else, I worked in the finance and insurance markets. And then returned to New Zealand to become a dairy farmer. Then I was a union organiser, and for the last 6.5 years, I have been leading the team here at the Waikato Environment Centre. The environment and living sustainably and having a world to live in for, one day, hopefully, if I get grandchildren, but nevertheless, future generations is really important to me. It always has been. I was raised on farms, and I know that it can feel like a disconnect from people, but, the base need for farms, when I was being raised, was looking after the environment. I think many cultures have customs and practices around it. It's interesting to me. And when we dig into community conversations, people value the environment, but also feel disconnected from it. So living sustainably is increasingly more and more important to the communities that we work with. And I'll have the next slide now. So a little bit about Go Eco. Our vision is for healthy environments supported by thriving communities. We have a team here of around 14 at the moment, and we work across multiple work streams and projects. We endeavour to be a regional capacity and capability builder, and more our work is in that space. We pilot new projects. Can I have the next slide? And we do it in line with our mission, which is to be a voice for the environment, a centre for learning, and a catalyst for change. So we see systemic change as a core part of our work, and for us, knowing that we don't have the power for systemic change, but we have the authority and the platform in which we can explore what that means within communities, especially with the community development education lens. And our work in that space has taught us that communities already know what to do. And one of the outcomes from recent climate events, even around this country and around the research and what that is pointing to, is that communities already have the answers, and they're also the first actors on the scene. So while it might take 2 or 3 days for a large national infrastructure to arrive, communities are often already small scaling, working stuff out themselves. We don't want to minimise the national infrastructure that's needed, but we do want to acknowledge that there's a lot of untapped community and resource that is available with goodwill. The next slide. So from that, identifying community assets has been really important to us. And I do want to explain this, or just go over this slightly before we talk about some of the work that we have done and reported on around community sustainability and some of the things that we've practiced here ourselves, what has worked and what has not. We don't have all of the answers, but we do freely try things out to see what happens. So asset in the building blocks of communities is identifying the individuals, the local voluntary groups, the organisations, the physical world and the cultural world. So understanding what's around us. Earlier this year, we collaborated with some organisations to bring community organisations into the room to actually do some asset mapping around a scenario. And it was really interesting how little knowledge in a small city people had, including myself, around what was available within walking distance of the venue we were at. And indicative of the world that we currently live in, where people will rush from venue to venue without observing what's nearby, pretty much, unless they're looking for a convenience. So we were able to develop in that conversation an idea of how many organisations and assets were actually clustered within a 1 kilometre radius of each site, and how they overlapped and where the potential was for collaboration and working closely together. Can I have the next slide? And then thinking about dreaming and reimagining. And part of that, and what came out of that, was communities of abundance. So we know within communities, in our experience, that there is food in communities, there is fruit going to rot in communities, there are spaces for gardens, there are streams and rivers, there are things that need to be cleaned up and things that need to be enjoyed. There are schools, there are churches, there are faith organisations, there are food banks, there are medical centres, and there are shopping centres. And all of those things operate in a relatively disconnected way from a community centre, as an example. So what does hub life look like? And what does that mean for people? We've been working on what climate responses look like for community organisations and small businesses. And what we do realise from that is that it's multifaceted. So there's layers and layers of response, and everybody needs to start somewhere. That climate responses we're looking at now are things that we used to call sustainability responses. They are one and the same. There's very little difference between those things, other than climate responses tend to be a more cooperative, collective and collaborative approach, whereas sustainability responses are often individual responses. Those individual responses can be upscaled. that within an organisation and within groups who come and hire space in an organisation, that the thing that we aim to achieve and understand is what people's behaviours are. Many of you will know that if somebody rents a space in your organisation, one of the first things that they're looking for is the rubbish bin. So how do we change that behaviour and set expectations at the start of that? And one of the things we have tried is actually saying to people that when you hire this space, there's no rubbish facilities. There's a recycling facility for these kinds of plastic. We ask that you don't bring them in. And then if you do bring them in, anything else in, that you take it away with you. And then we give them a little pamphlet about how they might change that. We know that having plenty of containers in a workplace helps people take food away. And we know that if you set up a function in a workplace and you provide the nearest distribution centre, either for whole food or for something like, we're fortunate enough to be near the community meal, the serve, like give instructions about how they can deliver that food somewhere else rather than scraping it into the rubbish. Again, if you don't make rubbish available to people, they will look at the solutions that you offer, has been our learning. So understanding our customs and practices, and pretty much what that means is asking why. There are many things that we do in the day-to-day within our workplace or within an office space that we just do because we've always done. When we sit back and work with a team of people to go, well, why do we do it that way? It always comes back to, it's just what we've always done. So the fun here is in exploring with a team what could be done and what the behaviour changes that's needed to occur. We also found out that in behaviour change, it's a repetitive action over 12 months. It is not something that you announce and expect people to change, that there's varying levels of support, encouragement, and people have busy lives. So that constant reminder, expectation, and celebration is really important. But for places that visit us, being able to say to them, wow, what amazing visitors you were, was equally valuable as it is for internal teams. The relationships and services. So around relationships and services, being able to say to people that the relationship is really important. And yes, you want to hire our facility, but we hope that you will learn about what we do and that you will want to maintain a relationship. And we're curious about what you do as well. We have a curiosity for your success and how it is that we might support you in that relationship. Here you can see some of the areas there that we look at, and I hope I've covered them off a bit more, but we also deliver that in a program where we talk to businesses and their full team. We ask for the full team to cover off those topics. If you remember how I said dreaming and reimagining, so laying over those conversations about identifying what the abundance is in an area, what each individual team member thinks thriving tomorrow looks like, and how they will feed into a hub life, so to speak. Because hub life is, like I say at the beginning of this, multifaceted, and it is always about the relationships. Can I have the next slide? So I'm not sure how well you can see this, but it is an inkling of a process that we did ourselves. And it is on a wheel. I can't even read it, so I hope you can. So all of the aspects of identifying change within an organisation and the impact of those. So as organisations, we have lots of choices to make. We can never, ever make all of those choices at the same time. For us as an organisation, doing a stock take was really important. And for other community centres that we've worked with and centres that hot desk, again, doing a stock take of where we're at, benchmarking is the first step to anything. We have to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and how long we've been doing it, as well as where we get our data. So measuring is important, but I do want to stress that emissions and emissions reduction is one element of an overall climate plan or sustainability plan. Often for people hiring our spaces, it's instructions and tools that make it easier for them and introduce them to the idea that there might be a different way of doing things. There will always be people who do not want to pay for a space that, say, they have to take their rubbish away with them. But when we talk to them and educate them and provide systems for them, then they are happier to do that. Also, the other thing we discovered was a sliding scale. So if we calculate the cost of disposing of our rubbish and then calculate the volume of somebody else's rubbish, then we can see how much more it costs to host that person. So where people understand the expense is related to something, then they're usually more keen organisationally to do something about it. One of the easiest savings that you can make is not paying for the removal of other people's rubbish or waste. It also encourages that reflection and responsibility. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm hoping that everybody's seen the waste hierarchy, and I do want to go over this a little bit because one of the things that happens, especially in higher spaces, is it's great to see the increase in people wanting to know what recycling system they can put in. But more and more we're trying to work with people way at the beginning so that recycling is the last, so that recycling is sort of the backstop system. How can we design events and systems where actually what we're striving for is zero waste? Recycling isn't zero waste. It's still utilising plastics and making it seem okay, like somehow that's a solution, when it is a sort of just a backstop to landfill in some instances. It's easier to give people alternatives now, and there are countries overseas that have waste-free events, and mostly that revolves around things that are reusable. Having reusables is a really important thing. And even when we hire in a space now, we would like to do it in a space where there is no plastic, where all of the items are reusable and cleanable. We know there are examples where it can work, and people just have to see it working in order to do it. So that's my little lecture on zero waste systems. Ideally, we would like to see a world where we can have those conversations with people to imagine what zero waste would be like in their community, and how, as a centre, they would be able to find the funding or find the way to employ people to ensure that those systems are robust in their area. We know that communities that are connected to community centres, if they can see something, visualise it, participate in it, then it has a roll-on effect of going home with them. We also know from food waste programs that what happens is that at home is the highest amount of influence that somebody has for behaviour change. The second is the workplace, but home is the most effective. So credit to aunties and mothers and grandmothers and parents in general who have those conversations in the work, in their households, and in as well as we also discovered that it happens with student flats and rental situations. So where people are habitating together, they can be influenced for change in workplaces where there's a need for relationships and there's some standards and you're paid to do something that also influences people. What was interesting to us is that outside of that, the influence is less strong, because people then move into human nature and psychology, saying the right thing rather than doing the right thing. Can I have the next slide, please? Another interesting thing for us has been diversity and understanding the diversity of community. The movement from talking about community as a homogenous group to talking about the communities in plural that we work with has been a significant step for us as an organisation. And part of the reason for that is we've been able to identify different levels of education or different programs of education for specified communities, with more success than just rolling out a workshop that is an all-come kind of scenario, because the conversations happen in different ways in different communities. As an organisation internally, for when we were renting spaces, this also became a part of our core development, is understanding the diversity of people in our workplace or in our spaces that we were working. Diversity is a big part of that, an important part of it, and it has also been a rich part of informing our work. The next slide. And this is actually my last slide, and I like it because it comes from the United Nations, from an ambassador to the United Nations. And it speaks to the I think it speaks to the intergenerational nature of our work. For somebody, so like my parents who are boomers, or people who were born in the 40s and 50s, they have a certain, well, we used to do it that way, but also we enjoy the convenience now, and we're too old to change. And it goes down to their grandchildren and great-grandchildren who believe that everything just needs to change. As an organisation and as a community organisation, one of our challenges has been imagining change and imagining what the future will look like, and then realising that it looks different for everybody. That there is no right time to start, but the good time is now. So don't wonder if your vision is too big. Ask yourself if it's big enough, because what you do today shapes our tomorrow. Whatever you decide, pass it on. Mentor, lead, inspire. Make it bold and then make it bolder. And that's how you engage people. We find that people reach out to us because they think that we might be brave, and they want to be told that they can be brave too. I'm really happy to answer any questions you may have and go into detail on any of those slides. And I think that I can wrap it up there.
Thanks so much, Jo. That's awesome. I actually have a lot of questions for you from this session. So can you talk a little bit about Go Eco and some of the projects that you have actually done with a lot of these communities that you've spoken about? I had a look at you guys, and the bike hub was really cool to see, and all those types of things to give our people some examples of how, I guess, to live sustainability in creative ways.
Absolutely. So within communities, there are super skills. I talked about that at the beginning. And for us, the Bike Hub is one of those projects that brings people into us as a hub. And the purpose of the Bike Hub is to receive bikes that would otherwise go to landfill or be left in the back of a garage. We realised that there were a lot of bikes going to landfill, and that at the dump shop and other places, or people weren't sure if their bike was good enough to sell, or they've upgraded to an e-bike and think that their bike is old. So we run a hub where people can bring their bikes in now, and the hub mechanic and a group of volunteers, people interested in tinkering with things, then refurbish those bikes and then give them back to the community. At the moment, they're actually working with the youth development, or about to start work with the youth organisation, where we've got 4 bikes, and so 4 of those, they are young men, so 4 of those young men will be coming in to learn how to fix those bikes up and fix their own bike up, and then they will leave with the bike. So it's partly circular economy, partly self-sufficiency, partly skills development, and partly community engagement and connection.
That's incredible. That's incredible that you can facilitate all those things within this one project, which is quite cool. Ben has said actually it was super inspiring. I love the hub life idea. Working within multiple community groups, I can see the values of more connectivity and synergy across multiple community groups. And actually I had a question about that too. So you talked about diversity in your slide, and what sort of findings have you found or have you seen when looking at the communities that you serve, I guess in Hamilton? What are some of the perspectives of the different communities in terms of sustainability? Have there been different perspectives with the different communities that you serve, or what are the
absolutely. So the Indigenous community is very different to the sort of main, well, you know, that the dominant white community, like so there's different methodologies that go there, but there's a synchronicity where people want to have relationships. So a synergy there where people want to learn about each other's views, and there's always opportunities to do that. We often get people who want to learn more about Mātauranga Māori or Māori worldview in an environmental setting. So our role as an organisation that's a Pākehā organisation is to support their journey and build their confidence so that they can make those connections and learnings and feel encouraged in that. One of the problems in that space, so it is, you know, it is a space where people lack confidence or feel that they do not want to get it wrong. I mean, there's deep reasons for that. And, you know, understanding the influences of power and systems is really important to helping people move in the right direction or in the move forward with an idea. The other communities, I think one of the most fun things that we ever did was what was it called? Eco Queer. So we had an overwhelming response to that, and we had a full house. Where we provided an event for the queer or rainbow community in all of its characters to come and talk about sustainability as a community, what it meant to them. And then from that, we realised that there were many people in that community that didn't feel safe or feel that they could fully participate in a normal work, like a workshop event that we would usually put out there, because for a multitude of reasons, and those were all to do with power. So I think what I'm trying to say is that being aware of power and how it influences each of the communities is a really important part of the engagement. And working out how to meet on their terms. There's no reason why we cannot segment our workshops for particular audiences. And usually, you know, we go for big numbers, everyone can come to this one, but actually it's the least effective way of operating a workshop, we've discovered.
That's awesome. In terms of internal kind of change, you spoke about, you know, when you look at stuff and you go, we've done this before. Oh, this is always the way that we've done it. How do you motivate your staff or your team? And what are some things that you have done to kind of
So
keep them
for us as an organisation, like I wanted, one of the most difficult things for community organisations in my experience is funding and paying for stuff. So we drew a line in the sand around that, and we prioritised our team in that space. So avoiding burnout, wellbeing, flexible working hours. We introduced a pay ratio system and a transparent pay system for the whole team across 4 bands. And so for us, what that meant was that we made a commitment to being a living wage employer. And we set a pay ratio of 2:1, which means the top of the ratio can be no more than twice whatever the living wage rate is this year. So actually what that did was help us budget for wages in an effective way, but also show the team ways of developing and progressing in the organisation if they wish to. We provide internal training. So all of our programs are tested on our staff, and part of their development is the learning that we want to encourage communities to do. We also have both team learning and development as well as individual learning and development systems for people, and that is varied and to the individual, and we try our hardest to make sure that an individual is finding some joy in their working day through learning, curiosity, imagination, and contributing to a wider team. So that's one way we look at it as an organisation, making sure that everybody in our team understands what it is we do as well.
That's cool. And have you found any kind of, I guess in terms of your sustainability journey, just ways to get people kind of on board with it? Like, I don't know if you've ever had people, I mean, you are the Go Eco kind of organization, but when someone is a little bit hesitant with zero waste, or maybe a little bit shocked that there aren't any bins around or anything like that, what are some easy sort of ways that you can kind of get people on that?
It's always about relationships. I mean, you never say never. Understanding what your non-negotiables are. So, was part of that is organisational integrity as well. Like, it would be ineffective for us to say these are the rules of hiring our space, but because you didn't read those, or like you didn't think we'd be serious about it, we're not going to apply those today. So we do have to have sometimes some quite strong conversations with people. But generally, if we do that with goodwill and assistance and help them find solutions in that moment, then we're all good. Like, because we've helped them solve the puzzle. We have provided them with some solutions for what to do, and we've helped them deliver those solutions rather than just take the problem from them. So it is a bit of a development approach, but it has worked for us, and it's when we've maintained those relationships. Entering into a contractual relationship with a collaborator or a partner is like a really big deal, and we enter into those not to see how it goes, but with the intention of forming a long-term relationship that supports our hub and their work, and that relationship is based on reciprocity. So it's a forever relationship. It's not a this week or for the next 3 months. It's a forever relationship that we're entering into.
That's so cool. I actually lived in Kirikiriroa for a little bit, which is awesome. So I know about the Serve, which is great, that you guys have partnered up with them. What would you say to community venues who want to sort of look at their assets around their communities? Like, how would you start that process?
I think there's 2 things. One is understand your own first. So when we work with community venues, or the community venues that participated in the climate response program that we did, there were some themes there. One was the cost of transport and what people could do internally and for their organisations to address transport. The other, and the cost of travel time. So, that goes to flexibility and other things, but the cost of travel time to organisations, the cost of energy and the way that energy is used. And what we worked out is that often people do not understand or have what we call energy literacy. We pay the bill and we go, "Ow, that went up," but we still pay the bill. But energy literacy is really important, understanding what that bill means and playing around with how you might reduce that, and what it is you need to know in order to reduce that are really important. And the other thing that is the biggest challenge for community organisations, in the report that we did, was the quality of the buildings. Community organisations often have buildings that they can afford with funding, and they're leased, and they have no, it's out of their control, insulation and other things relating to that building. So that's often a problem that needs to be overcome, or understood and mitigated. And there's a variety of ways that can happen, but still quality buildings in the community sector would be like super awesome. Yeah. The other things are the starting places and working with others. So if you find somebody that also wants to be part of that journey and understanding your community around you, then it will be easier. When it comes to understanding your community assets, if you're undertaking the journey yourself of understanding what your sustainability is, then looking for partners who also need assistance. One of the things you can do is go out as a team and volunteer for 2 hours with the restoration group down the road, or go for a team walk along your local stream to understand what's there, what it looks like. Pick up the rubbish down your street. Like, actually doing things that are visible to the community will automatically connect you to the community that's around there, and you will be introduced, or people will walk up and introduce themselves because they're curious about what you're doing. That's about starting those relationships and getting a community of people who want to do something for good.
That's awesome. Kind of just putting your money where your mouth is, kind of thing, like actually walking the talk. I think, hold on a second. I just, you said that home is the most effective place for influence. What have you, as Jo, how do you practice sustainability at home?
Oh, I'm terrible. No. At home, our cats are really slack, but we do reduce the amount of soft plastics because they have to go to landfill here. We work really hard to reduce the amount of items in plastic. We do all of those things, like we actually make our own bags to take shopping. We don't use bags for fruit and vegetables. We seek out stores with reduced wrapping. We are privileged to be in a position to be able to afford to buy some things in bulk, which we transfer into storage containers at home. We reuse jars for all sorts of things. We particularly treasure large ones. We help our friends and neighbours harvest their backyard crops, and we swap and share abundance. That is something else that's really easy to do, and one of the things we've done for a long time is have what we call a kai pantry at the front door, where the staff bring their abundance, or anybody in the neighbourhood can bring their abundance, and it's free for anybody to take away. And we do that in our local town as well. We do all of the traditional things like buy the travel miles and other routes. And we own an EV and we catch the bus, which is an hour ride for me in the morning, but it's actually quite nice. We thrift shop our clothing, and we also repurpose and remake clothing for ourselves. So yeah, just a few things that we do at home. We have an insulated house. We're upgrading our fire this year. We use humidity meters in our house to understand when it needs heated and cooled. And we have a practice around opening and closing curtains. So in the winter time, to let the sun in and warm the house up. And when the sun moves on, we close those curtains in the summertime to block the sun out so that we don't cook inside our home, because we do not have air conditioning. Yeah, I think that's sort of a roundup of the customs and practices. Oh, we make our own lunches, those kinds of things, quite a lot of the time.
That's awesome. And that's a lot of stuff, but it's also there's some really simple things like you said, making lunches, which is great. I think as someone who can get quite overwhelmed, obviously wanting to help, but you get quite overwhelmed with what to do. That list is very, very useful, I think.
I think one of the things to keep in mind is that we don't like not to feel guilty about having a busy life, because that's out of our control. And we operate in a system that's out of our control. So it's doing what we can and making an effort to make small changes as we go, because everybody's individual changes are part of a bigger change, and we've all heard that many times. But the true impact comes from collective and cooperative change. So yes, make your changes at home, but they're not going to create impact alone.
Thank you so much, Jo. I think, go on and on, but thank you so much for your time. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A/chat box here. I'll definitely send them through to Jo via email and can send them back to you. But yeah, I'd love to thank you so much for your time. Go well with Go Eco. If you wanted to let everyone know about Go Eco and what kind of I guess if they wanted to know more, how they might approach you.
Absolutely. So our website is www.goeco.org.nz. We've got an online shop. So, there's some things that you can buy there. You can contact us via the contact form on that site, or you can email me directly. The contact is also available there. We're always happy to talk to community organisations about what sustainability looks like, what new programs look like, what small change looks like, and how you can be responsible for shaping your internal practices as well as encouraging community practices. There's so many things that you can host at a community house or in a community organisation and shared space that bring people and connect them to a hub. Everything from crop swaps to clothes swaps to whatever somebody in your community is passionate about, bring new people in, and it's an opportunity to create relationships that will help you on this journey anyway. Every community needs a hub, because we always need somewhere that we can turn to when it's just not going so well. So thank you for inviting and listening to me. Really happy to have the conversation offline if you're curious. Otherwise, feel free to look at our website, connect to your local zero waste facility or environment centre or community energy facility, and keep the journey going.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jo. And I'll just move on as we wrap up this session. I've just put the Go Eco website on our chat. And everyone who's registered, I'll put in all the contact details and everything like that for you to check out. So thank you so much, Jo. So I'll have a look. We'll just wrap up. I love the collab. This is a great way to learn and upskill with community venue sort of topics. And so if you want more resources like this, you can go to SpacetoCo or space2.co /guides. We've got things from how to move to an online booking system to reactivating your community venues and more episodes on the collab as well. Really, really happy that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from this session. Have a great rest of your week.